Remember when the COVID-19 vaccines were announced, how people were encouraged? It was a little bit of hope in a difficult time. But then the delays were announced by this government, which means that more people will get sick and more people will lose their lives. On top of the delays, we're also learning that Canada is the only country in the G7 that is going to access Covax, which is vaccine supply meant for developing countries. How did the Liberal government let things get so bad?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government will never apologize for doing everything in our power to get Canadians vaccinated as quickly as possible. Covax has always been part of Canada's procurement strategy, and the Covax mechanism is working precisely as designed. We've been clear from the start. No one will be safe until everyone is. We're focused on getting Canadians vaccinated while making sure the rest of the world is vaccinated too.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
The Deputy Prime Minister just said that the Liberals did everything in their power to get Canadians vaccines, but this morning the Minister said that the Liberals failed to secure the right to produce Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca vaccines in Canada because they didn't have the capacity to produce them here. Now, the UK was in the same boat that we were 10 months ago, but they've managed to secure domestic production capacity. So if the Liberals did everything in their power to secure Canadians vaccines, why didn't they do what the UK did, instead leaving us entirely dependent on other countries to produce vaccine for us?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada pursued a strategy of pursuing the earliest possible vaccines that we could secure from among all of the vaccine candidates in the world. That is why we've reached agreements with 7 vaccine manufacturers, 5 of whom we've, of course, received encouraging clinical data from, 2 of which have already been approved and are being deployed on Canadian soil. And every Canadian who wishes to receive a vaccine from among those 2 approved vaccines will have access to one by the end of September.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, the member just said that they pursued a strategy to get us the earliest vaccine possible behind every other country in the world? Early as possible? Like, we don't have any right now. So again, I think about the United States. They turned a convention center into a hospital in a week. China built an entirely new hospital in 12 days. The United Kingdom built their vaccine capacity in 10 months. The Liberals were sitting around talking with CanSino at a time when they should have been building our capacity out. And they admitted that this affected our right to produce these vaccines at home. Why the fail?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while other countries were acting, Canada was also acting, securing PPE for our frontline medical workers and our provinces, working carefully on securing vaccine agreements with 7 leading manufacturers around the world, working indeed on building up our domestic ability to produce long-term vaccines, and working, of course, to get those vaccines into Canada and into Canadian arms at the earliest possible date. That means that every Canadian that wishes to receive a vaccine will have access to one by the end of September.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Economist Intelligence Unit reports that the federal government is talking about an unrealistic timetable when it says that all Canadians who want to be vaccinated by end of September will be able to. It probably won't be able to deliver on that promise until 2022. Also, we learned yesterday that Canada is the only G7 country that will be taking from the Covax fund. When will this Prime Minister stop being dishonest with Canadians and tell them the unvarnished truth? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada obviously acted quickly to secure sufficient doses to vaccinate all Canadians. It did this on many occasions. We already have enough vaccines approved by the end of September so that all Canadians who wish to be vaccinated can do so by then. In terms of the Covax, Canada is proud in its participation in this program, which it plans to provide vaccines to developing countries, and that's the very object of Covax, so that Canadians can obtain vaccines through this program, and that's what makes it work. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I'm not proud to have to dip into the Covax fund to bail Canada out. Pfizer and Moderna do have vaccines that are approved, but we will receive fewer doses than expected, and that's why we're dipping into Covax. That's not normal. And the Prime Minister has to really tell people the truth. And if there's a vaccine issue, we don't want to find out in 6 months. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Covax Foundation is intended for everyone to have access to vaccines. Richer countries can buy them, and poor countries can receive donations. Canada was one of the first countries to make a donation to the Covax program, and we can be proud of what we've done and what we are doing to ensure that everyone will get vaccines.
For Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the government is seeking an exemption agreement to protect Canadian jobs from the Biden administration's Buy American policy. As the government pointed out the other day, Canada is the #1 customer of 32 American states. Has the government reached out to any of these 32 state governors to seek their support to oppose these Buy American policies? Has the government asked Canada's premiers to reach out to their gubernatorial counterparts?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for that question. We are taking a Team Canada approach as we have done over the last 5 years. The Prime Minister has spoken to the President and has also spoken to the Vice President. Our terrific ambassador in the U.S. is having discussions at all levels. I am looking forward to speaking to my counterpart once that confirmation process takes place. But please be assured that absolutely this is a Team Canada approach as we work with businesses, with exporters, with officials, and with colleagues.
Hello?
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Oh, good. Okay, all right. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, in 2009, when faced with the Buy American policies of the Obama administration, the previous government worked with the 10 provincial premiers to present a united front to secure an exemption agreement. Is this government going to do the same thing? Is it going to convene a First Minister's meeting on this issue?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to work with my provincial and territorial colleagues. It was just very recently that we had a very good meeting at the provincial, territorial, and federal level to talk about trade and to talk about that road to recovery, and indeed how we work together with provinces and territories on this road to recovery to ensure that Canadian businesses and our workers have the full support of all of us working as Team Canada.
Before continuing, I just want to make sure that it's clear that all the members who are joining us virtually, please think of almost as a paranoid way of looking at things, that your microphone is always on. So if you're going to speak, whether it's to the microphone or someone else, just check to see if the mute signal is on, and it'll be much better for everyone involved. Alors, on va continuer.
So we're going to move on with oral questions. The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, even though the bad news is piling up, this government keeps on saying that we will receive 6 million vaccine doses by the end of March. I hope so, but it must reveal all the information that allows it to say that. Because right now, halfway through, we've just received over 1 million doses. And we know that Moderna is going to announce a new drop in deliveries for the week of February 22nd. So the shortage will last at least until the end of the month. To reach 6 million doses by the end of March, the Prime Minister will have to find 1 million doses a week, at least. Can he unveil his detailed plan? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada has 7 supply agreements for vaccines with 5 different vaccine candidates, which is encouraging news. 2 of these vaccines are approved and will receive 6 million of those doses by the end of March, like the member has just said. And Canada, obviously, will continue to get more supplies of vaccines so that every Canadian who wishes to be vaccinated will have one by the end of September. The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, People must be able to trust the government. But it's hard because on the one hand, the government is not being transparent, and on the other hand, everything we're learning is worrisome. Canadians aren't reassured to see the government digging into the Covax program, and it's not reassuring to see that Canada has to dip into the vaccine supply for developing countries in order to hope to
closest ally and friend, and trade between us exceeds $1.5 billion per day. However, several U.S. policies are hurting our economy, and the Prime Minister is doing nothing to address it. The Conservative motion today will create a special committee to ensure our ongoing cooperation with the U.S. with a goal to find solutions. Will the government support this motion?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Our government knows how to defend Canada, as we showed in our successful NAFTA negotiations and in the 232 tariff fight. By contrast, when the going got tough, the Conservatives lost their nerve. The future leader of the official opposition actually said, "I believe that many of the Canadian retaliatory tariffs should be dropped, as they are not worth their symbolic nature." Conservatives wanted to wave the white flag, but Canadians can trust our government to fight for them.
The Honourable Member for Portage-Lisgar.
Mr. Speaker, does the Deputy Prime Minister not realize that Canadians have already suffered tens of thousands of job losses because of the pandemic, and now with Biden's cancelling of Keystone, the threat to Line 5, and his Buy American policy, tens of thousands of more jobs are at risk? Canada's unemployment is already the third highest in the G7. Up to 30,000 jobs alone are at risk if Line 5 is cancelled. Do the Liberals not realize the seriousness of this situation? These are good paying jobs, many of them unionized. So again, when will the Prime Minister do his job and protect Canadian jobs now and in the future?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government absolutely appreciates the importance of the Canada-US trading relationship, and we have shown that we are able to work in a Team Canada approach to maintain that relationship. And when the going gets tough, Mr. Speaker, we are willing to stand and fight to defend the national interest. When it comes to jobs, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that Canada has already had a robust recovery from the depths of the COVID recession, much stronger than the one we're seeing in the United States.
The Honourable Member for Portage-Lisgar.
Well, if the Liberals believe in a Team Canada approach, they will support our motion and support establishing this special committee. But, Mr. Speaker, everyone knows that there will be no economic recovery until Canadians can start to open up their businesses and their lives and get back to and that they can get back to work. But that, Mr. Speaker, will not happen until we get vaccines. The Prime Minister has failed miserably to deliver vaccines or even be clear and honest on how his September deadline will happen. We are now 34th in the world in the vaccination of our population. Let that sink in, Mr. Speaker. 34th and dropping.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government absolutely appreciates the urgency of getting vaccines to Canada. That's why Canada has secured 10 doses of vaccine per Canadian. We have the most comprehensive and the most diverse vaccine portfolio in the world. We've already received more than 1.1 million doses. We will receive 6 million doses by the end of the first quarter, and every Canadian who wants to be vaccinated will be by the end of September.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we're all Canadians. We are all proud of our country. But this morning, I feel bad for my country because the government has not properly secured its vaccine agreements, and the result is that Canada is knocking on the door of the Covax fund. Mr. Speaker, Canada is the only G7 country to be using the Covax fund. It's humiliating. How could the Canadian government let things get this far out of hand?